Today I want to talk about setting up custom materials for Chief Architect. You can see on my screen I have this bathroom and it's been decorated 6 different styles. So all I did was go online and I found my favorite brands and I did screen captures of those tiles and I converted those to materials that could be used in painting my scene in Chief Architect. So let's go over how that's done. Here I'm in a camera view in my Chief Architect scene. And we want to replace this corrugated metal look with a tile from one of my favorite brands. So the first thing that I need to do is kind of find that tile. So I've gone online to Pratt & Larson and I really love their hand glazed look. And if I kind of scroll through here, we'll look and see if there's a shape that we like. And let's try this hourglass tile. Yeah, so they have some nice images here. They're pretty big resolution, and it looks like there's at least one repeat that I can capture with my screen capture tool. So a repeat is the repeating pattern that we see with these 4 different tiles. So it goes light, dark, light, and then dark, light, dark. And when I do a screen capture, I want to just capture these pieces that are going to repeat over and over in my scene. The way Chief Architect works when it attaches a material onto a surface is it just takes that photograph or that image that you've assigned and it maps it side by side and up and down over and over again at whatever scale you'd like. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to use my screen capture tool. That's under the Tools menu, Screen Capture Setup. Here it lets me choose the type of image I'm going to capture. We're going to use it as a material. And so I get the most screen space that I need. I'm going to make sure that this option, Hide Chief Architect while capturing, is turned on. Now if I hit the capture button, it will hide Chief Architect and bring me back to my website. You can see the cursor has changed to a crosshair, and that's because Chief Architect has taken over so it can do a screen grab of our selected area. So what I'm going to do is just line my cursor up right near this grout line of this first tile, and then click and drag, and you can see this gray marquee that kind of follows my cursor. I'm watching the upper right hand corner and I want that corner to align with a similar area as where I started. Then I'm going to drag down and do the same thing with the bottom right cursor, and you can see how all 4 corners are attached to similar areas of the tile. This is my full repeat. When I let go of the cursor, you can see it pops me back into Chief Architect, and now I have this new material 5 in my library browser. I don't need the dialog anymore, so I'll just go ahead and hit done here. If I take this material as it is and just paint it right into my scene, you can see the program automatically stretches that material to fit into the space. We don't really want that because we want to get an accurate count off of our material, so I'm going to be adjusting this material a little bit. First, let's rename this, and I'll call it Pratt & Larson. And let's adjust some of the properties here. So I'll open the object, and this gives me the Define Materials dialog. If I look at the texture panel, this is our image that we created. And here's the scaling. So it's set to stretch to fit by default, but because I want it to be the same size as the actual tiles I would purchase from the store, I'm going to adjust this value. I know these tiles are 6 inches long and 3 inches tall, and I have about 1.5 going each the width and the height of this repeat that I've captured. So there are a few ways that I can determine the right scale here. I know it's a 6-inch wide tile, and I know that there are about 1.5 of them, so I'll do the math right in the dialog, and that gives me the result of 9. I also know that 9 is going to be the answer for the vertical distance, though I could do the same thing. We get a preview here that kind of shows what this material will look like. So this might be a good time to do some other things to the texture so it looks more realistic in my scenes. I'm going to select my path from my original image and then copy that information and paste it into my bump map. Now you can see that it looks like there's a little bit height to the grout lines in my texture. Also, while I'm here, I can come to the Properties panel and I can choose to make my material shinier with this specular value, and I can take away some of that roughness. So this will give it a little bit more of a smoother surface when I paint it in my scene. So let's try it. And that doesn't look too bad. So now we have this texture that looks great in our scenes. We should see what it looks like in our other views. When I go to my wall elevation and I see where this material exists, there's no pattern lines here. So let's go ahead and make an adjustment there. I have the pattern panel of the Define Material dialog, and you can see that there's no pattern type currently applied. You can select something from this drop-down list if you'd like, or you can even choose patterns from the library browser if you have any stored there. I happen to know that I don't have a pattern that really matches the shape of these tiles, so I'm going to use this tool instead, Pattern from Texture. So with this tool, the program's actually looking at the texture that I've attached to it, and it's trying to derive some pattern lines that match that. You can use these sliders to get a little bit more accurate pattern lines if you'd like, and you can even adjust with these advanced tools too. I'd kind of recommend playing with these values until you see what you get and if there's anything there that you like. For our needs, it looks like the simple method is fine. So I'll just choose OK, and I get a preview of that pattern in my dialog. One of the things I like to do, I think it's a cleaner look, is to change the line color for my patterns. So I'm just going to eyedropper that grout color, which is kind of a dark brown, and I can make it adjusted in my material definition. So now when I hit OK, you can see that I get this pattern in my scene. The last thing I like to do after I've set up a material with a pattern is to check it in my watercolor view. The watercolor view allows you to have a line drawing over the top of kind of a more textured looking drawing. So let me turn on line drawing, and that's with this checkbox here. I also like to kind of adjust this so it's a little easier to look at. So I'll set these values a little bit lower. And you can see our line drawing versus the pattern or texture. So these aren't quite aligned the way I would like them to be, so I'm going to make some adjustments here. Again, I'm using the Adjust Material definition, and on the pattern panel I have these horizontal and vertical offset numbers. I'm going to go ahead and adjust these along with this scale value so that the vector view and the textured view align better. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. If I hit OK, then you can see that I have a good alignment here. So now when I take my rendered view, if I chose to do a watercolor view here, I've got a nice looking scene. So you can repeat this process as many times as you'd like and create entire catalogs of your favorite tile manufacturers. That way you can use those over and over, and you know that you always have the right material count and the right look and feel when you have it applied in your scenes.